Hello there! So, we are in for something big today. This is the first episode of the story so far. A series where we take a character and we just talk about all the story that he has in the main events of the Tekken series. So, get ready and enjoy! In this first episode, we are gonna talk about the most important, the most adamant and undestroyable, charismatic grandpa of the series of you can say even video game history. We are gonna talk about HEIHACHI MISHIMA, everyone's favorite grandpa. So it's just been announced he's gonna be back in Tekken 8 as well, so he's not dead again, and he's been the most consistent character in the game series. He is one of the few elected characters that is present in every single game for more than 30 years. PS1 games, specifically Tekken 1, 2 and 3, they didn't have a real story mode that was implemented in Tekken 4. Therefore, the only plot lines you were getting at the time were basically a little description you were getting of every single character in the user manual that you were getting with the disc, and at the same time the ending that you were getting in the arcade mode. Now, these endings were working a very specific way. Every character was basically, in his ending, was the one winning the Tekken tournament. But obviously, at the end of the day, for the main story and the main plot of the game, only one of them is the winner. So we're gonna try, I did some research and I'm gonna try to drive you and guide you talking about what's HEIHACHI's story so far. So in Tekken 1 there was not much of a story behind it. Like, the only reason that the game, the Tekken tournament existed was because HEIHACHI, the leader of the Mishima financial group, which is basically the Mishima Zaibatsu, decided to hold this tournament to gather stronger warriors and fighters to then recruit in their special forces army that was forming at the end, which is basically the future Tekken force. This was all the story there was behind. And at the end of the day, the prize would have been a massive chunk of money. Literally, there wasn't much behind it. It was just this, the game. But already we can see some plot into it. We can see some little things. Like, one of the competitors was Kazuya Mishima, obviously, everyone's favorite Kaz, which is his son. Now, the story between Kazuya and HEIHACHI, we're gonna see, is not very friendly, and we all know that already. But in particular, when Kazuya was still a child, HEIHACHI decided to see if he was worth it to toss him down a cliff, to see if he was strong enough to come back. And as well, I will add a little trivia on this that I found in that book over there, which is The Art of Tekken, which is an amazing book if you're a fan of the series. It's a very nice book. There are a lot of little information that you will not find around. And it's a little note, it's an interview to Arada. It explains how the inspiration from the HEIHACHI character comes from the Japanese figures like fathers and grandfathers that are directly sons of the World War II and the post-World War II era, which is basically a kind of figure that, this is what it comes in the book. I would never dare to say that I know Japanese culture. I don't live there. But what explained in these interviews is how HEIHACHI represents the kind of very successful but at the same time hard father that wants to see his son, especially his firstborn son, success, and therefore he tried to forge him like iron, and it's very hard to him, and is not very supportive, but actually he tries to kind of obstacle to push him away, to make him become stronger, to make him become what it would be considered at the time a real man, you know. And that's what HEIHACHI was supposed to represent in the series. At the end of the day, in the tournament, Kazuya makes it up to the end of the final, defeats HEIHACHI, and we have what is the most famous Tekken ending and the most famous Tekken cutscene, which is Kazuya dropping his father into the very same pit as a revenge and smiling at the camera. And now we are already into Tekken 2. So in Tekken 2, Heihachi is still alive. Heihachi survived and he secluded himself in the mountains. When he trained, after he says to himself that he's lacked into martial art in the past, and that's why he's been defeated by Kazuya. So he trained himself with his pet / best friend Kuma. We all know he's doing electrics to everyone now. And he gets ready to revenge. While Kazuya, after winning the tournament, became the new head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, basically, and announced a second Iron Fist tournament. Heihachi sees this as the perfect opportunity to seize back the power and the control of the company, so decided to participate to the tournament. After defeating Kazuya, his son turns into his alter ego, Devil, and this is the first appearance of Devil and the Devil Jin in the main plot. Still, even in this very uneven matchup, if you ever tried the arcade version, he wins the duel. And what we see in his ending is tossing again his son into an active volcano and flying away on a helicopter while smiling on his face. Now, in Tekken 3, Heihachi is back as head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he never looked better. I think Tekken 3 Heihachi is just the peak of how Heihachi always looked. The head of the big company that is the big conglomerate that is owning the world, but still the great and solid traditional martial artist that he is just the embodiment of everything that you want to see as the old evil grandpa. So what does he do in Tekken 3 after he comes back as a leader? He forms and creates the Tekken Force, which is basically an army of the private army of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he does it with the intent of helping the more poor and wasteland zone of the world, mainly to gain political advantage and getting support from the country leaders around the world. And here you see one particularity about Heihachi, which is very different from Kazuya. In Tekken, since the first game, you see how there is not a real poster boy, there is not a real good guy. Everyone does things, and he does it for his own gain, for his own personal reason, that not necessarily gain, but for his own reason. The only difference is Heihachi is one of the villains, but he's never been the villain that is just bad because he's bad. That's more a role for Kazuya. Kazuya is bad because he's bad. With Heihachi, you see how he's evil, but with a solid reason. There is always a solid fundamental reason behind. Like in this case, like political gains, and always wants to gain something behind. That's why I think he's a great character. With the going on the series, you always see him as starting as the main villain, but then moving on a very, very slow, but still kind of present redemption track. And you will see this later, where he does not just do what you would expect a main villain to do, and he's a bit sideways on the villain path. He then finds in Central America signs of an ancient creature / warrior that goes by the name of Ogre. At the same time, after he discovered this, numerous strong warriors disappear, like named Sam, Li Chaolan, Back to San, I think Wan Chirei as well is one of those. And here the connection. Ogre is going around and is attracted by these strong souls and strong warriors. After that, a teenager boy finds Heihachi, and he goes to him and he says, "Hello there, I'm your grandson." The boy is obviously Jin, son of Jun and Kazuya. And while Jin tells his story to Heihachi about Jun being defeated by Ogre himself in Yakushima, Heihachi confirms his theory and understands that Ogre is there and is going around basically hunting the strongest warrior. And here has the idea of training the kid for 4 years to use him as a lure against Ogre. After training him for 4 years, he announces that King of Iron Fist. The events, the tournament unfolds, and you have Jin rising and arriving at the final stage, matching himself against Ogre. Now, after defeating Ogre, he reveals his true form called True Ogre, which is very demonish spitting fire guy with an arm as a snake. It's top design. Jin defeats Ogre, and at the same time, Heihachi, still afraid of the Devil Jin, decided to, having the Tekken Force gunning down his grandson, and he finishes himself off with a handgun and a bullet in his head. After that, the devil Jin awakes into the young boy and he stands up, flies with the morning crow and grabs Heihachi and he shocks him down through a wall and he flies away into the dark sky of the night. And here is how Tekken 3 concludes. After failing to capture Ogre and after failing all the experiments that Heihachi tries to do with Ogre remaining tissues and bloods, he then understands that to control Ogre's powers, he's gonna need to find and use some of the Devil Jin cells. Not knowing where Jin is located, he discovers that the rest of his dead sons, they himself thrown into a volcano, Kazuya, are held in the ultra-modern company called G Corporation, so he sends the Tekken Force to his tower while he's controlling the mission from an helicopter. The Tekken Force sneaks in, looking for the rest of his dead son, and they get stopped by a mysterious man covered in scars that brutalize the whole squad. The man is Kazuya, and on the camera swear revenge, saying that he's gonna take back everything that was taken from him. And that's how Tekken 4 starts. Being surprised at first, he ends up again having one of his malicious plans. He understands how he can very simple have both his son and grandson coming to him. He then announces that King of Iron Fist Tournament 4. During the tournament, Heihachi manages through the Tekken Force to abduct Jin and chain him into Onmaru. Onmaru is basically the Mishima dojo, the Mishima estate. Then, I think during stage 7 is Kazuya versus Heihachi, and instead of fighting, Heihachi looks at Kazuya and says, "Do you want to meet your son?" Then they both leave the tournament stage to move towards Onmaru, where for the first time we get the 3 generations of Mishima in one scene. Kazuya then loses control of his body and Devils takes over it. And he explained to Heihachi how when he was throwing the volcano, half of Devil left Kazuya's body basically to go into Jin himself. And after this conversation, he decided to laser his father out. Jin and Kazuya clashed, and after that, Heihachi regains consciousness. And all he witnessed is his son on the ground, the roof destroyed, and black feathers gliding down from the sky. The intro of Tekken 5 is, in my opinion, the best intro a video game has ever had. It's just goosebumps. I remember when I plugged the game the first time, I was like, yes, fuck yes, this is great. So, the intro starts directly after the events of Tekken 4. Heihachi stands up in Onmaru, he sees his son on the floor, and an army of Jack is falling from the sky. Heihachi then shouts to his son to get up because there is to fight. And the two, for the first time, fight together as father and son. And it's great. During the fight though, Kazuya reveals himself as the lovely son that he's always been, grabs his father from his head and he tosses him onto the Jack horde. While they all assault him, he runs away and the Jacks self-destruct themselves. And this makes us understand how actually the Jacks were sent by the G Corporation and this was part of Kazuya's plot to get rid of his father. After the explosion at Onmaru and the whole estate basically crumbling down, we see a shadow, a shady figure on the side, saying 4 words that became history in the series.
HEIHACHI MISHIMA is dead.
The massive explosion frees one mysterious warrior out of the depth of Onmaru. He is then the same person that is gonna take control of the Mishima Zaibatsu in the 5th chapter. That person is Jinpachi Mishima, no other than Heihachi's father. He then announces the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament. In the 5th chapter, we discover that Heihachi at the end is not dead at all. Again, he hears the news about the 5th tournament and he wants to participate, just to understand who dare to take over the control of his organization. And while he tries to get and participate to the tournament, he arrives too late and the tournament is already over. Because of this, Heihachi doesn't have an active part in the plot of the 5th tournament. The only important thing to say is that at the end of the day, Jin is the one that defeats Jinpachi, and therefore Jin seizes control and gains control of the Mishima Zaibatsu. After Heihachi survived the event of the 5th game, he then lives in the Mishima estate with few guards as kind of soldiers, which were loyalists of the Tekken force. He then meets with Lars Alexandersson and Alisa Boskonovich, which are the main characters in the Tekken 6 story mode. With the first one fighting against Heihachi and evenly matching and defeating him into a fight, people start to question how is this possible. He then reveals that Lars Alexandersson is no other than his illegitimate son. After this said, Lars decided to shoot his father with a pistol and, well, being the Giga Chad that he is, he blocks the bullet with his teeth.
NANI?!
He then let the 2 guys go without having the Tekken Force stopping them. But again, Heihachi Mishima in Tekken 6 doesn't have one of the focal roles in the history. This is the only appearance that he does in the main plot. In Tekken 6, Jin takes on Azazel, which is the core and nucleus and the origin of the Devil Jin. After they discover Jin vanished after the fight with Azazel, Heihachi uses the opportunity and seizes once again control of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and then announces the 7th King of Iron Fist, with the only target of exposing Jin and Kazuya devil nature to the public. And this move happens after he tried for years to control and manage the Devil Jin, always failing, understanding maybe he cannot do it at the end of the day, and rather than try to harness the power, it's better to fight it. He then allies with Claudio Serafino, one of the exorcists that resides in Italy, and he discovers that Jin was saved by Lars and Alisa. And at the same time, a mysterious figures appear and challenge the old man.
何者じゃ。我は剣を清めし者なり。ほう。ならば言葉はいらんな。
Is Akuma himself, looking for revenge for the murder of Heihachi's wife, Kazumi. After the brutal fight, Akuma rises victorious, and the public opinion thinks that Heihachi is dead. He survives and takes advantage of this situation, making the Tekken force sending a message about calling off the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7. He then broadcasts a fight between Kazuya and Akuma on the helipad of the Gear Corporation. Broadcasting this brings to the public the true nature of Kazuya, being now one and only one with Devil himself. And at the same time, it takes advantage of the situation and uses a Mishima Zaibatsu satellite to destroy the Jin Corporation tower, hoping that this will destroy Kazuya as well. After this event, a journalist gets in contact with Heihachi himself. He's a journalist that is digging into the story of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he knows already a lot about the company itself. Heihachi decided then to meet him, and he starts to disclose with him all the obscure secret of his past that we don't know yet. And here we discover how a young lady, Kazumi, one day stepped foot into Jinpachi's dojo and became Heihachi rivals in training. After that, the two fell in love and married and eventually have a son, Kazuya. Just after that, unfortunately, Kazumi falls into a bad fever, and while Heihachi is treating her and helping her, she rises and she tries to murder him. He defeats her, and the day after, when they talk, he noticed that she doesn't recall anything of what happened. He therefore just assumes that what was happened was due a split personality of Kazumi. But one day, the woman confronts the man and explains her how he married a Mishima just with the intent to murder him. As a member of the clan Achijo, she knew how eventually he would have become a threat for the world and humanity. So the two fight a very sorrow and sad battle, and after she turns into devil and she awakes her Demijin, Heihachi holds her by her neck and breaks it. After killing her, it looks very sad down to her dead body, and this is the only moment where we see Heihachi shedding a tear.
私を殺せば憎しみの連鎖が話してください平八さん私を愛しているなら
いいよもはや貴様はかすみではないならば
He then throws his own son down a cliff to see if he possesses the Devil Jin as well. And after that, he takes power away from Jinpachi, from the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he locks his father in the basement of Onmaru. And here, in this exact moment, is when Heihachi Mishima became Heihachi Mishima. And this kind of confession to the journalist himself, it comes out almost like a relief for the man. It's the moment where he just says, okay, now there is no more secrets. This is all me. Now I can go in peace. And in fact, just few hours after this interview, Heihachi and Kazuya meet and fight once more. They're in the middle of an active volcano, and the two fight relentlessly. And Kazuya wakes his devil power and defeats his father. But his father, being the man of steel that he is, stands up once again, covered in Mishima lightning, and once more challenges his son, which comes back and reverts from his devil form to his normal one. And the two keep on fighting, exchanging blows until...
まだ死んでおらんか。おのれ平八。 ててらして使いが敷いて貴様とのざれ言も今日で終わりじゃ。貴様から全てを取り戻す。
Fist to the chest from Kazuya to Heihachi defeats the man. Kazuya leaves the body of his dead father and he tosses into the river of magma. And this is how the story of Heihachi Mishima ends until next autumn. This was it. This is the story of Heihachi Mishima, Tekken 1 to Tekken 7. I hope you liked it, guys. This is a new format that I really hope you enjoy, because I'm always being passionate for the game, and I noticed the last time I went to tournament that most of the people didn't stick around, they didn't play the game since I've been playing, so they might not know what's the story behind all these characters, because every one of them at the end of the day has a bigger or smaller plot to be told. So I really hope you enjoy it. If you did, please consider subscribing, it helps a lot and it helps me bring more stuff like this. And well, I have a question for you. How do you think Heihachi survived the magma river? Let me know down below in the comment. Anyway, I have been the John, you have been awesome as always, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!
12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7,